Hey everyone! If you're like me, those perimenopause symptoms are driving you crazy. Well, I've got a little help for you. All you need to do is go to my midlifewithcourage.com website, and a little box is going to pop up that's going to ask you if you'd like to get my free ebook called Balancing Your Hormones. It's a short little guide with tips that you can use throughout the day, super easy, to help you balance out those hormones through the things that you do. So check it out, midlifewithcourage.com. Now let's get back to the show. You're listening to the Midlife with Courage podcast. This is where women in midlife come for inspiration, motivation, and sometimes a little education to help them flourish after 40. Let's get started. Hello, everyone, and welcome back to another episode of Midlife with Courage. I'm Kim Benoit, your host, and I'm so happy to have you all here. I'm also very happy to have my guest here with me today. Her name is Katie Prentiss. Welcome to the podcast, Katie.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm glad to be here.
I'm very excited to talk with you. I think you have kind of a cool story that I wanted to share with everyone. So, first, why don't we just start out and just introduce yourself? Tell us what you do, where in the world you are, anything you want to share.
Okay, sure. I live in Portland, Oregon. We've been here for about 16 years, but I've lived really all over the US. And I am a filmmaker and actor, but that hasn't always been true.
Yeah, we're going to talk about that.
Sure.
I think I saw you grew up in Ohio.
I did. My
Okay.
parents are both from Ohio, and
Okay.
I spent all of elementary years there.
Okay. I was born there, so it's always interesting. We have family there
Yeah,
too. So, yeah, anyway,
nice.
but yeah. So, I always like to just start out and ask my guests, when was a time when you felt the most courageous?
Hmm. I think Oh, I don't know. It's like I went to two different places immediately in my mind. One is like thinking about taking a leap into something that's really like life-giving and creative and exploratory, which is like filmmaking and acting. Like acting, trying that for the first time in midlife was like very intimidating to me. So I felt courageous to go for it. But I think also prior to that, my journey in caregiving and moving with my mom to the end of her life, I think it takes equal courage. It just feels a lot sadder and more difficult than the other.
Sure. Tell us what you were doing before you became an actor and
Sure.
did your midlife pivot, so to
Yeah.
speak.
Yes. So I started out as a stay-at-home mom. We have four kids, and I really loved being able to do that. I felt like it was, a gift that not everyone gets to choose or that people want to choose. And I totally understand that too, because there are plenty of days where I wish I could go to a job instead and talk to other adults and whatnot. But after my fourth kid I was born, I started a portrait photography business. He's now almost 18, but he was a newborn and I had loved photography, had studied a little bit in college and thought, what if I could do this professionally and like actually make this into a career? So that was a fun adventure type of journey of like trying to pivot from being primarily a stay-at-home mom to also having an entrepreneurial self-employed job
That's a big
business that
leap.
I started. Yes, it was. And I was juggling a lot and I always wanted to have my kids feel like I was fully with them, but also wanted to start this career. Fast forward, my mom at a really young age, well, she was 62 when we got her diagnosis of frontotemporal dementia. And I'm sure that she had symptoms in her 50s. Prior to that, we just didn't recognize the early on symptoms of this particular type of dementia or degenerative disease is like really difficult to recognize because it can look like just other behavioral things or
Sure.
other shifts in life, which we all have in midlife.
Yeah, I was just say I know a lot of perimenopausal symptoms kind of make me
Yes.
question a little bit.
Yes. I mean, we all think we're losing our minds in midlife, right?
Yeah, exactly.
Um, and so when you're looking at your parent, it's easy to think, oh, well, they're just going through something, in midlife. But my mom got diagnosed with frontotemporal dementia at 62, and we were told right at that. Well, actually, before then, that she couldn't live alone or drive anymore. So this was probably at least a year before that diagnosis. But that catapulted my siblings and I into having to like be a caregiver. All of a sudden, we were all with our own young children. My kids were all in elementary school. And I think that that journey just forced me to like slow down and stop. We decided, my sister took my mom in first, and then we ended up taking mom in Portland. And she spent the last 2.5, 3 years with us here in Portland of her life. So that being said, it's like it's such a wild like pivot, then pivot, then pivot. But after losing my mom, and that was 8 years ago in 2016, I think the grief, the grief hits in different ways, and life settles in a weird way after losing someone. But I also felt like there was this whole question for me of like, how do I want to live? When you witness someone dying and their life ending what feels like too soon, you start to evaluate your own life and how do you want to make it be and count, and how do you want to feel? And so that is what helped me take the leap into acting. I
Ah,
kind of on a whim was like, I want to audition for a role. And anyways, I won't get into all the details of that now, but that it was just like one thing led to the next, and it was
yeah.
kind of unexpected.
Did you always want to be an actress?
I get that question a lot. And I think the logical answer would be sure, yes, but I I I don't identify like so much with saying yes to that because I remember as a child, like wanting to be an Annie, wanting to audition for
Uh,
plays. Like in high school, we didn't have a theater program. In college, I thought about auditioning for theater, but I never did.
huh,
It was kind of like always like on the periphery of something that would be really fun to do, but it never felt like a real vocation or a real thing that you do when you're in your life because
sure.
I didn't understand acting in the industry and how like you really can make a career out of this. It's not just all like Hollywood
Yeah.
stuff. So yeah, I did in a sense want to act, but I never did want to act in a sense of like, oh, I should make build my life around this
You're right,
as I have
right.
now.
Oh, very cool. So, how did you start? Where'd you start? You decided yeah, I want to get into acting. Then what?
Yeah, that's a great question. And there are really like logical ways that people can start acting. Mine is a little like less common. I started seeing productions in town around Portland and different shows being filmed. Like I would see something in my neighborhood, like, oh, what is that? That's a set. And it just definitely
Oh,
spiked my curiosity and my interest. Like I remember thinking after mom died, oh, I should make a bucket list. What would I put on it? Oh, I want to put like be on a set. I want to like be on a film
oh,
set. I just think that'd be such a cool thing to do before I die. And so I was just having these thoughts percolate. And in that phase, I saw a casting breakdown on a Facebook group. And it said, we're looking for a woman, this age range, this look. And I was like, well, I fit that description. Like maybe I should just send them a message that I'm interested. So I did. And then they were like, great, can you send us a self-tape tomorrow? And I was like, what is a self-tape? Like,
that
I
would be
don't
my first
know.
question too.
Yeah. Yeah. But I think like you have your business, like if you're an entrepreneur and you figured it out in the past, like you go, okay, well, let me figure this out. So I quickly
Yeah.
Googled self-tape and tried to learn what it is. It's basically recording yourself for an audition.
Oh,
So they give you like the lines that you're supposed to say in the scene that you're supposed to do. And so I
oh,
recorded that and submitted it. And then long story short, I booked that role, and it
wow.
was on a feature film. It's a beautiful film called Sophie Jones,
Mhm.
filmed locally here in Portland, written by a woman named Jess Barr. It's and again, I booked that and I was like, "What? This is crazy." Like not only am I going on set, but I get to have like lines and a character and all this stuff. So I get
Wow.
there and I'm still thinking like this is even better for my bucket list.
Right, yeah,
So,
your bucket list got a little upgrade.
right, right, even more. And and then instead, I was there and I was like, this is like amazing. Like I was just blown away by the experience. And I think part of it is because all those years I've been doing like solo entrepreneur, like photography business, I've always kind of miss that collaborative mind of like working with people and just like creatively brainstorming and like so like sitting in a scene on set where you're collaboratively telling a story. I was like, this is amazing. And so I left that day thinking, I wonder if I could do this again. Like I literally was like, I feel like I got away with something here. Like, and I wonder if I could do it again. And I started like thinking, I'll just look around Facebook more and like see if there's other casting breakdowns that I could submit to. And I would say most towns probably have Facebook groups with like acting and filmmaking if you wanted to look into it. And then within a month or two, I signed up for acting classes and I started training. And I just basically like the way it feels to me is I started a new business. It was like the same
Yeah.
as photography. I was like, okay, well, how does this work and how can I do it? And so it just, I mean, I just like loved it so much. I dove in and I haven't looked back.
That that is amazing. To me, what kind of popped into my mind was it seems like for acting, you're so dependent on other people saying yes, or yes, we want you, or we don't want you, whatever it happens to be. But you said, no, this is my business and this is how I'm going to attack it. Not maybe attack is not the right word, but this is how I'm doing it.
Yeah.
That's just it's just a little it's a different way of thinking about it in my mind anyway.
I think you're spot on with that. And that was kind of a almost like a rude awakening that I encountered because I thought in my mind with acting, I thought, well, I've already figured out how to run a business
Sure.
before.
Yeah.
And like I've learned this industry and like how to navigate and I feel pretty successful at my portrait photography. So I can just do that again. And I
Yeah.
think that with acting, I was like, oh, it is like starting a business and playing the lottery at the same time.
Yeah.
Like, like there isn't a ton of control over whether people say yes or not.
Hey, ladies. I just wanted to thank you for listening to this episode. And I also wanted to remind you that there are a couple easy ways for you to support the show, and they are both free. The first thing, maybe you've already done this. That's great. Thank you so much. Go to the platform where you listen and click the follow button. Super easy. You'll get notifications of every episode the day they come out. If you want to get those notifications earlier, you can go ahead to my website, www.midlifewithcourage.com, and subscribe to the website. What that means is you'll get an email every Monday with an inspirational message and a link to the episode so that you can listen to it ahead of everyone else. So if that sounds great to you, I would love for you to do that. Join me on my website. You'll also get notified of some wonderful new things I have coming down the road. I can't wait to share them with you. So remember, follow and subscribe. Let's get back to the episode.
Right. Yeah. You just pretty much sounds like you present yourself and then they say yes or no,
Yeah,
but it's how you present yourself.
correct.
Do you think if you wouldn't have got that first role, do you think you would have kept going and kept trying?
Yeah, it's a great question because, people always talk about like, is it luck or is it work and or is it talent,
Yeah.
raw talent? Like people always try to evaluate how quote unquote success happens in a field like this. And I think that it's a really good question. I think that I would have figured out how to be a background actor on some set somewhere. But had I not gotten that speaking role, I don't know. I may have gotten the bug regardless and like dove into classes, but having that first role is it was really unique. I'll just say, like, I went into my first acting class and my coach was like, "So, were you an actor in college or something?" Because I think a lot of women in midlife who, or anyone in midlife who comes to an acting class that hasn't taken an acting class in years, the logical explanation is like they used to do this and now they're trying to do it again. And I was like, "No, I've never done this before." And he's like, "Well, what brought you to class?" And I was like, "Well, I booked a role on a feature film." And he was like, "That's unusual."
Oh,
And
yeah.
and almost like I don't even think I realized like how coveted that experience would be to like peers and whatnot, because
Sure.
so many people spend years and years and years training and just hoping to book a speaking role in a feature film.
Yeah.
So yeah, it was kind of like going in the back door. I think, I don't know, it's hard to say like what would have happened if that
Sure.
initial thing wouldn't have happened, but
Yeah.
is meant to be.
Yeah, I was gonna say, I think it's meant to be somehow it would have happened regardless. But
Hmm.
that's so
I
cool that you
agree.
got your first one right
I
out of the
know.
chute. That's amazing.
It's so special too, if I can just add one thing, is
Sure.
one of the things I think about is like, I don't know, like faith, magic, like all the things that exist in the world. It's like how do these things fall into place and like why does it fall into place? But Sophie Jones was really special to me because it was written about a girl in high school who actually loses her mom to cancer.
Oh.
And the director had actually lost her dad at a young age. And so
Oh.
I look at all of that and I was like, why are they booking me for this role? Because like I've never done this, you know?
Yeah.
But I think the director just found some sort of like, I don't know, just there's this connection or chemistry. And then when I realized what the story was and that they both had personal stories that's similar to me, I was like, this feels so meaningful that my first
Sure.
role would be like also connected to like my own experience with grief.
Right. That kind of gives me a little bit of goosebumps because
Yeah,
it was like you were meant to get that.
that's
So
what it feels like.
yeah, of course you were gonna get it.
Um,
Yeah, that's amazing. So what did that lead to then? I know you've been working on some other things.
yeah, so back to your question of like it feels like, you know, when we were talking about the lottery versus like starting a business, I think that one of the pieces of advice I got early on in acting was if you can create your own work. And I remember thinking, okay, I am a white woman in midlife. There are millions of us trying to act. Like
Yeah.
nobody's going to be like knocking on my door and like, "Oh, you're so unique. Like we want to book you." So it's like you can, I realized really quickly, like I could work harder than everyone, faster than everyone. I could hustle. I could like be so winsome, whatever, but I still may not have the opportunities that I want, especially at the pace that I want. So his advice to create films like stuck with me, and I made my first film in 2020, and it was actually a short film loosely based on my experience with mom and like those early stages of like seeing someone's mental decline and not knowing how to explain it or like what was actually going on. I made that short film, and then I thought I want to make more short films and keep learning. And this is like going to be like my film school. I'm just going to make some films. So
Yeah.
I made a short web series called Gamer. It's like a 3 episodic web series that I'm hoping to release the first of next year.
Uh-huh.
And now, currently, I'm working on my first feature film, and it's called Wake Up Maggie, and it's a full-length movie, and it's not based on my personal story, like in the context of the actual story, but it is based 100% on truth with like the circumstances in the story, if that makes sense.
Sure.
So it is, I call it like a coming of middle age film because
Oh.
it is about this journey that we take in midlife and how we go from, this is my experience, is like we go from thinking we can control our lives to like hitting all sorts of unexpected turns and pivots or trauma or grief or crisis, whatever it is.
Yeah.
Our life changes us and it affects us. And what Brene Brown calls it is a midlife unraveling.
Mm.
And I think it's like that journey of control to unraveling to acceptance. And this is the journey that we'll get to see Maggie, the lead character in the film, go through. And she definitely enters into caregiving, which is like one of those things that I think so many of us, especially as women, encounter in life at some point. And it's such a labor of love. It's such a sacrificial love, and it's such an invisible, difficult journey. And I really want caregivers to feel seen in this movie. And it's also going to raise awareness for FTD, which is frontotemporal dementia, the type of dementia that my mom was diagnosed with. But again, the context of the story is set with in between two estranged sisters and just their journey of like, yeah, when life, I always think like caregiving does not ask permission. Like, is this a good time for you to add like 10 times more to your life right now? Like, is this a good time for you? It
Yeah.
just dumps in and life keeps going and you have to somehow figure it out.
Yeah.
So Wake Up Maggie is going to be a really beautiful movie and I can't wait to share it with everyone.
That it sounds amazing. It really does. When will that be out, do you think?
Yeah, we're filming in February of 2025, so
Okay.
around the corner from now. It's
Okay.
coming fast. We have been working on script revisions and fundraising and gathering an audience for this film. It really helps with like indie filmmaking if you can show that there is an audience who can't wait to see this movie. It gives like this credibility to like release in theaters. So we'll film in February and then we'll enter into post-production, which can take it's hard to know. I mean, some of it's going to be based on funding for us if we have enough funds to move as quickly as we'd like.
Mhm.
But we hope to finish. I mean, earliest would be the end of 2025. That would be a very
Okay.
ambitious schedule. But
Okay.
that's what I would love. I would love
Yes.
to finish at the end of the year.
Yeah. Just it will happen. It will happen.
Thank you. I
Yay.
appreciate that.
We'll put that out into the universe.
Keep doing that. Yes, yes.
Yes. And you have an audience listening right now that would love to see it. I know. So,
Thank you.
yeah, anything
Yeah.
we can help to do that, I would love to help you
Thank
out with
you.
that. Yeah.
Yeah.
So when you say you're making a movie, are
Mhm.
you, can you just tell us a little about that process? Are you're writing it? Are you, how does
Yeah.
that work when you say you're making a movie? Because I think
Yeah.
that's so cool, like very
It's a
amazing.
great question. It is such a different industry, and it could mean a lot of different things if someone said that. It could mean that they're producing it or that they're directing it. I'm doing all of the above.
Everything.
I I wrote the script 2.5 years ago is when I started it, and it's been in revisions and stuff. I spent over a year, probably about a year and a half writing that script, and it's still being like chiseled down to like be the best it can be before we start production. They say a movie is made three ways. It's in the writing, the filming, and then the editing, which I think is
Oh,
fascinating. So
yeah,
I love that I wrote it because it just feels like I can have this integrity throughout. Like I'm not
sure.
handing it to someone else to like it can totally change. Like if
Yeah.
anyway, so I wrote it. I have two producers on board, but I'm also producing with them, and that means like fundraising and like accruing the cast and crew, that kind of thing. And then I'll be directing it too. So, and I'm acting in
I was
it.
gonna say, are you acting in it
Yes.
too? Oh,
Yes.
wow.
It's
Oh,
it's you know, I know what I'm getting into. It is so much work. It's like your brain just feels like split down the middle of like actor to director once we get to set. But it also is a story that's so it just feels like so much a part of me, like it's in me, like I know it so deeply that yeah, I'm just like it's gonna live and breathe and it's in the way it's meant to. So yeah,
oh,
so
exciting.
all the things.
Yeah, oh my gosh. That it's just so exciting, I think.
Thank you.
Yeah, so let's talk about you want to bring awareness to the frontal temporal dementia. As a nurse, I retired nurse. My last one of my last
Oh,
jobs was in an assisted living with
oh, you know.
memory care, and yeah, it's such a tough road and for
Mm-hmm.
everybody. So
Mm-hmm.
can you talk about that a little bit? Maybe some things that people should be kind of watching for or
Yeah.
yeah.
Yes, 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 yes. I thank you for asking that and thank you for your work in
Yeah.
memory care and all of that. It's like I always think caregivers in those places are, as a family member, it's, there's so many layers and drama in watching your person change and shift and like feels like fade in front of your face. I always love that a caregiver could walk in and know them in this moment only and not have that history. Medical staff and stuff, I'm not saying just caregivers, but
Sure.
so for my mom, for frontotemporal dementia, I'll say this, it's the most common type of dementia under the age of 65.
Hmm.
It often is misdiagnosed. It often, I think it's an average of 3.5 years to get an accurate diagnosis for
Wow.
people. So if you see your loved one, this could be 40s, 50s, 60s, you really want to watch if someone takes a big personality shift, you want to explore like meeting with a neurologist because I think this is why it's misdiagnosed is because it can look like a midlife crisis. It can look like depression. It can look like alcoholism. There's all different types of variants for FTD. There's a behavioral variant that I've heard stories of people getting arrested, drinking around the clock, having like all sorts of like sexual misconduct because compulsion control is like limited with frontotemporal dementia.
Mhm.
Personality shifts. My mom's like emotional makeup changed. She used to like cry really easily. Like we would always think she was so sappy, like cry at a commercial or a Hallmark movie. And then like she just dried up. Like she just didn't express that anymore. And it was like it's sad. It's like she's hardened or something. A lot of times people socially isolate with FTD. So, women are told it's menopause. So it's a lot of confusion around those early signs. My mom had the type that was primary progressive aphasia, which means that she lost her ability to speak and like words were jumbled. The thing about FTD is it's not a memory type of dementia.
Mhm.
So many of us are used to and understand Alzheimer's and like the loss of memory and the repetition that people do, or like, repeating the same question or forgetting who someone is or where they are or what year it is. Um, my mom didn't have that, but she couldn't articulate herself.
Uh,
Um, so there's a lot of repeating of phrases. There's maybe like soothing behaviors, like she would rub her hands together all the time and
mhm.
she would just like repeat. My mom's phrase was just okay, okay, okay. Like she would just repeat
Um,
that a lot. She would also say, let's go. So I'd be like, what? Oh, she's so bored. She hates being here, but
uh,
I think it's just like a go-to thing that they can get out verbally. So that was
sure.
some of that. I think FTD is less known and less researched, and
Mhm.
it's so important for us to not only fund more research, but also raise awareness so people can get a diagnosis sooner.
Mhm.
And then also like help advocate for policy change in our country so that I read somebody post on Instagram just the other day, like having FTD or any type of illness is so expensive in our country.
Oh, it
And like,
is.
why are people and also when you think about like FTD is hitting people while they're still in their working years.
Yes.
So it's even more of a financial burden if they lose their jobs and lose their ability to make money.
Right.
Whew, it's a
That's
lot. So
yeah.
people need support and we need awareness. And I'm hoping that this movie can help stimulate that conversation and help, get us to even a cure or even some sort of medicine. There's no treatment for FTD right now,
Yeah.
none whatsoever. So
Um,
it's really discouraging.
yeah, for sure. For sure. And like you said, it affects so many people. So
Hmm.
yeah, I love that you're doing this and thank you
Thank you.
for shedding light on it and trying to bring awareness to it.
Yeah.
So yeah.
Yeah.
Oh my goodness, so much if people want to find the films, find you, where would you suggest they go?
Thank you for asking that. My website and all my social media is Katie Prentiss. It's pretty easy to find. So katieprentiss.com is my main website. And Wake Up Maggie is wakeupmaggiemovie.com. We also have Instagram and Facebook so far with Wake Up Maggie Movie as our handle on those platforms. So yeah, I'm
Okay.
trying to make it as easy as possible for
Yeah,
people to
for sure.
find, but we would love for people to jump on. I think like growing those social media followings, like growing that community is so important to us before. It's kind of like if you have a book launch or anything else, it's like the more people that connect to us before it's released, the better. Because then, if we do, my dream is to have theatrical release at the very least limited across the country and fill those theaters with people who have been following and been part of the journey.
Yeah. Yeah. Oh, wonderful. So listeners, go and find her on her social media under the wakeupmaggiemovie.com on the website or social media so that she can build an audience so that when that movie comes out, there'll be lots of attention for it. That would be
We
awesome.
love it.
Yeah. Well, Katie, I feel like we could just keep going, but we do have to say goodbye at some point. But
Yeah.
before we do that, is there any one last message that you want to leave with the listeners?
Yeah, I would love to just encourage you, no matter where you find yourself in life, whether you're in a phase of caregiving or I think of it as a contraction or expansion. If you feel like your life is contracting in and you have to be doing sacrificial work for other people, just to remember that that doesn't have to always be true, that things can change, and that you really can't have an expansion without a contraction first, just like our lungs move or the ocean or labor and delivery, all of that. I think that I just want to encourage people because I know those times in my life where I felt like it would never end and I felt so small and stuck. And then now I feel like I'm doing this incredible life-giving work and I try to just ride that wave and enjoy it because who knows what's to come. But yeah, just remember that your story isn't over. It continues on.
Beautiful, beautiful words from a
Thank you.
beautiful lady. So
Thank you.
thank you so much, Katie. We will talk to you soon.
Thank you for having me.
Uh-huh. Thank you for listening to the Midlife with Courage podcast. If you liked what you heard, I would love it if you would share it with a friend. Until next time, take care of your beautiful self.